Yamuna tira vanachari Yamuna tira vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yaksharanandana Praja Janaranjana Yaksharanandana Praja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakachaja Satara Sata Shri Srimad The Divine Grace of our Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Granta Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi All glory to the assembled devotees All glory to the assembled devotees All glory to the assembled devotees All glory to Shri Guru, Shri Guranga and Srila Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, Chapter 53, texts 46 through 55. So we'll chant the first text 46 and then just read through the rest, since we have to chant one shloka 10 times. Is that okay? Namasye tvāmbike bhīkṣṇaṁ Namasye tvāmbike bhīkṣṇaṁ sva-santāna-yutāṁ śivām sva-santāna-yutāṁ śivām bhūyāt patir me bhagavān bhūyāt patir me bhagavān kṛṣṇas anumodatām kṛṣṇas anumodatām. Please chant. Namaste tvāmbike bhīkṣṇaṁ sva-santāna-yutāṁ śivām bhūyāt patir me bhagavān kṛṣṇas anumodatām namasye tvāmbike bhīkṣṇaṁ sva-santāna-yutāṁ śivām bhūyāt patir me bhagavān kṛṣṇas anumodatām namasye tvāmbike bhīkṣṇaṁ sva-santāna-yutāṁ śivām bhūyāt patir me bhagavān kṛṣṇas anumodatām. We got 6 more to go. Namasye tvāmbike bhīkṣṇaṁ sva-santāna-yutāṁ śivām bhūyāt patir me bhagavān kṛṣṇas anumodatām. Ladies. Namasye tvāmbike bhīkṣṇaṁ sva-santāna-yutāṁ śivām bhūyāt patir me bhagavān kṛṣṇas anumodatām. Namasye tvāmbike bhīkṣṇaṁ sva-santāna-yutāṁ śivām bhūyāt patir me bhagavān kṛṣṇas anumodatām. Namasye tvāmbike bhīkṣṇaṁ sva-santāna-yutāṁ śivām bhūyāt patir me bhagavān kṛṣṇas anumodatām. Namasye. I offer my obeisances to you, Ambike, O Ambikā, abhīkṣṇaṁ, constantly, swa, your, santana, children, yutām, along with, śivām, the wife of Lord Śiva, bhūyāt, may he become, patir, husband, may, my, bhagavān, the Supreme Lord, Kṛṣṇaḥ, Kṛṣṇa, tat, that, anumodatām, please allow. Translation and purport by disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Princess Rukmiṇī prayed, O Mother Ambikā, wife of Lord Śiva, I repeatedly offer my obeisances unto you, together with your children. May Lord Kṛṣṇa become my husband. Please grant this. Please repeat. Princess Rukmiṇī prayed, O Mother Ambikā, wife of Lord Śiva, I repeatedly offer my obeisances unto you, together with your children. May Lord Kṛṣṇa become my husband. Please grant this. And I'll just read the translations. Text 47 and 48. Rukmiṇī worshipped the goddess with water, scents, whole grains, incense, clothing, garlands, necklaces, jewelry, and other prescribed offerings and gifts, and also with arrays of lamps. The married Brahmana women each performed worship simultaneously with the same items, also offering savories and cakes, prepared betel nut, sacred threads, fruit, and sugarcane juice. Text 49. The ladies gave the bride the remnants of the offerings and then blessed her. She in turn bowed down to them and the deity and accepted the remnants as prasadam. Text 50. The princess then gave her vow of silence and left the Ambikā temple, holding on to a maidservant with her hand, which was adorned with a jeweled ring. Text 51 through 55. Rukmiṇī appeared as enchanting as the Lord's illusory potency, who enchants even the sober and grave. Thus the kings gazed upon her virgin beauty, her shapely waist and her lovely face adorned with earrings. Her hips were graced with a jewel-studded belt. Her breasts were just budding, and her eyes seemed apprehensive of her encroaching locks of hair. She smiled sweetly, her jasmine bud teeth reflecting the glow of her bimba red lips. As she walked with the motion of a royal swan, the effulgence of her tinkling ankle bells beautified her feet. Seeing her, the assembled heroes were totally bewildered. Lust tore at their hearts. Indeed, when the kings saw her broad smile and shy glance, they became stupefied, dropped their weapons, and fell unconscious to the ground from their elephants, chariots, and horses. On the pretext of the procession, Rukmiṇī displayed her beauty for Kṛṣṇa alone. Slowly she advanced, the two moving lotus whorls of her feet, awaiting the arrival of the Supreme Lord. With the fingernails of her left hand, she pushed some strands of hair away from her face and shyly looked from the corners of her eyes at the kings standing before her. At that moment, she saw Kṛṣṇa. Then, while his enemies looked on, the Lord seized the princess, who was eager to mount his chariot. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Rukmiṇī was anxious that her locks of hair might impede her vision, since she was most eager to see her beloved Kṛṣṇa. The non-devotees or demons are bewildered at seeing the opulences of the Lord, and they think that his potency is meant for their gross sense gratification. By Rukmiṇī, an expansion of Kṛṣṇa's internal pleasure potency was meant for the Lord alone. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti quotes the following verse to describe the kind of woman known as Shama. Sita kale bhaved ushno, ushna kale to sitala, stanosu kattanao yasha, sashama parikritita. A woman is called Shama when her breasts are very firm, when someone in her presence feels warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti further points out that since the beautiful form of Rukmiṇī is a manifestation of the Lord's internal energy, the non-devotees cannot perceive her. Thus the heroic kings assembled in Vidarbha were agitated with lust upon seeing the Lord's illusory potency and expansion of Rukmiṇī. In other words, no one can lust after the Lord's eternal consort, since as soon as one's mind is contaminated with lust, the covering of Maya separates one from the pristine beauty of the spiritual world and its inhabitants. Finally, Srimati Rukmiṇī Devi felt shy as she looked down from the corners of her eyes at the other kings, for she did not want to meet the glances of these inferior men. Om Jnanatamranda Shagananjana Shlakaya Chakshurmaitamatasamai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhaiti Garam Yaki Patamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Read the first text again. Princess Rukmiṇī prayed, O Mother Ambikā, wife of Lord Śiva, I repeatedly offer my obeisances unto you, together with your children. May Lord Kṛṣṇa become my husband. Please grant this. A very simple prayer. Just like in the morning when we worship Srimati Tulsi Devi, we pray, may I always serve Radha Kṛṣṇa, Radha Govinda. And this way we adopt a mood, at least in our mind's eye, that we are here for a particular purpose, not for our own sense gratification. And just like we've just seen the beautiful forms of their lordships Shri Shri Gauranitai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, and Shri Shri Radha-Shyam Sundar. And Prabhupada tells one interesting story about how during a lecture in the presence of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, many were assembled and listening attentively. During the course of time, just like we see, sometimes the door is open, sometimes the door closed. The doors happened to open during the course of the lecture, and one person got up, left the lecture pandal, and went to the darshan mandap. And the lecture continued, and then when that person had filled his eyes, he came back and again sat down. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said to him, "So, what did you see?" And the man began to describe. The deities were very nicely dressed, wearing such and such color dress, such and such mukut, like this, very. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta proclaimed, "Simply eye exercise. Simply eye exercise." So we have this, of course, in the assembly of devotees. We're not taking ourselves as so advanced that when we go before the deities, yes, we see their beautiful forms, but we take advantage of the opportunity to feelingly offer prayers for the entire world, so to speak, but beginning with ourselves first, that somehow or other I can maintain my vows, somehow or other I can maintain my service and do please my spiritual master. Tad vigyanatam sagarum eva abhigachat. This is the first prayer of the devotee, that he wakes up in the morning, he offers his obeisances to the spiritual master, and he chants the name of his Ishtadevata. This sets his mood, his tone. Not that he begrudgingly gets out of bed and thinks, "Oh, now I have to take a cold shower, now I have to do this, now I have to do that." No. Utsaha nishtaya darya. From the very beginning, one has to get up with enthusiasm. This, of course, everyone who's in any type of professional situation, this is a common theme, that one has to be very enthusiastic. Otherwise, he can not expect any success. So how can it be any different for those who are engaged in the highest occupation? Distributing love of God, it is not an easy task. When we're reading these stories, such stories are meant to drive away the lust from our hearts, to understand what is the purity of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada gave us this instruction early on, that one should read Krishna book before taking rest, so that he will dream of Krishna, and that especially if one is troubled by these lusty desires, he should read a summary, this rasa dance, which would seem just the opposite, almost like pouring fuel on a fire. But when one is submissive and follows the order of the spiritual master, it has the correct effect. Right? There's that story we told last time about the devotees who were in Los Angeles during the time of the printing of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, like Devamrita Maharaj. And Prabhupada engaged some devotees who were seemingly reading some things that perhaps were separated from the other devotees in their association. So he gave the example that in the pharmacy there are many medicines on the shelves, but you cannot just go into the pharmacy and help yourself. So you have to have the prescription, and you have to have the pharmacist, and then they will give you the proper medicine specific to your condition. And that's the famous time when he said, first deserve, then desire. So we have to emphasize this just because we understand that there are many distractions. All right? We're thinking how to execute our service in so many ways, but the main thing is how to develop our sincerity to the point where Kṛṣṇa is samitpani srotyam brahmanishtam. That Kṛṣṇa, through the agency of the Guru, he's revealing everything. There's not that we're approaching Krishna and Krishna is revealing. Yes, he says that. Sarvasya-chaham hridhi-sthane Vishno. But what is our qualification? Our qualification is tadvidi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya. That we approach to the spiritual master, we inquire submissively, and we render service. And Krishna is giving many instructions to Arjuna. But at that certain point, Arjuna has to surrender. And so in between the initial discourse and Sarvadhamma Pritya Jamamayakam Shanabhaja, it took that time for Arjuna to become convinced that he has to surrender to Krishna. But as the spiritual master, not just as his friend, not just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's of course very instructive for us. We all have our respective teachers, gurus, spiritual masters, etc. But we have to have a complete focus on how to please the spiritual master. What are his instructions? And for the most part, these instructions are how to execute Krishna consciousness for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada and for the success of his mission. And we don't have any other business. Sometimes it may seem like that there are so many activities, but Prabhupada has given us the basic outline. We have Harinam, we have prasadam distribution, we have our temples and our deity worship. So these things are the core of our mission. And we tread on very thin ice when we deviate too far from these core principles. So many times we've seen over the years that someone will come up with an idea, and maybe it sounds good on paper, but then the execution is flawed because it was not in line with Prabhupada's mission. And there we're thinking that somehow or other I'm more intelligent than my Guru Maharaj. So this is a very great, difficult fault one has to overcome, to think that somehow or other that he has more intelligence than the founder Acharya, and that he should and he should try to implement that beyond what we see as again these core mission activities. Why is this temple a success? Because the temple leaders are maintaining the core mission. We see that everything is going on. We see that book distribution, beautiful, opulent deity worship. We see prasadam distribution. So these things, wherever these things are going on, then there will be success. Where I am in New York, for many years there was no Harinam. It's almost impossible to conceive how in a temple there could be no Harinam Sankirtan. In New York, where it started, there were no Harinam Sankirtan parties. And so, what happened? Disaster ensued, as always happens. Things become, how can you say, displeasing, and it becomes obvious by the result. So wherever there is some mistake, you can look for these missing ingredients. If someone's thinking, no, Harinam is too difficult, or book distribution is too difficult, or prasadam distribution is too difficult, then there's what's too difficult is our inability to dedicate ourselves, to find a way how to do it. That is the only difficulty. Yeah? So we had, and we see that since the Harinam was restarted, that New York is flourishing, as can be expected in the most important city in the world, where Prabhupada started this Harinam. So we just encourage everyone that somehow or other to align your desires along with the desires of your spiritual masters and Srila Prabhupada. This is, in one sense, this is the definition of success in devotional life. We have no other means to accomplish the mission. And ultimately the mission is first. Sometimes we see that there are casualties in the course, just like in a battlefield, some soldiers die. And Prabhupada also referred to that. He said, don't be surprised who leaves, be surprised who stays. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. That it's very easy to focus on the negative aspects. Something doesn't seem to be right, that we have so many detractors. But Prabhupada was clear in his condemnation. Said the dogs may bark, but the caravan will pass. He said this in a very strong way. He was referring to those who are much more advanced than us even. So what to speak of us? So we have to be very careful about this adherence to wherever. So many devotees here in the International Society, after the festival, everyone will go home to their home temples. So being in Vrindavan is a special benediction. It is Krishna's place, as Prabhupada has told us many times. And you get the opportunity to completely focus on how you want to execute the mission. There's no other distractions. I don't have to worry about what I'm doing in the afternoon, the evening, the next morning. No, just simply going to the temple program here is the most amazing panacea for all one's troubles in his heart and his mind. And he takes to them, Prabhupada said specifically that the devotees would go to India simply to become spiritually recharged. Not to stay, unless you have service here. This is another misconception. We've seen in some of the holy places that there are large communities of devotees who are living around the temples, but no one is engaged in service to the temple. They're just living. And Prabhupada didn't call this living. He actually exclaimed in Mayapur that if one is thinking that, yes, Krishna can fulfill all of his desires, even his material desires, he said, but then he will have to take 1 million births before he again attains the human form of life. 1 million births. Krishna will give you whatever you want. You want a big building? He'll give it to you. You want puja pratishtha? You can have that. These things are easy for Krishna to give. But you will not get Krishna. He actually said that they think that they are living in the Dham, but they are not actually touching the Dham. Very strong words. So we always have to be careful. What is my purpose for coming to Vrindavan Dham? Am I here for some spiritual sense gratification? I mean, wonderful prasadam, no doubt, thanks to the temple management. One can get lost in the Mahaprasadam booth. There's very famous pastimes about Mahaprasadam in Vrindavan. When we used to live here, on days like Janmashtami, full fast days, they used to lock up all the Mahaprasadam in the life membership office. No one could get it. All day long, everybody's fasted. And many devotees thinking, oh, when we break the fast, but because we're fasting from grains, so the Mahaprasadam was beyond our dietary restrictions. So, but the life membership office has a very small window, so that people on the alleyway can pass by and see inside or inquire. And so everything is locked up. But we used to have one Gurukul boy, very small. We could pass him through the window. And then we would raid the storehouse of love of prasadam. And we would distribute everything. So such pastimes are there. But this is, Prabhupada said, this is not material. This is Mahaprasadam, these pastimes. And Vrindavan is very special. So we should relish our time here. And we should take back with us the what we have accomplished through the purification of being here, free from any material encumbrances, hopefully free from the influence of our smartphones and tablets and our computers. Just Jai Ram Ji ki, Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Maharaj ki Jai Ho. So we have this opportunity to go back to our home temples and enliven all of our God brothers and God sisters. How wonderful everything was. That Vrindavan Dham is such a special place, and Krishna Balaram Temple is such a special temple. And how everyone should aspire to come at a certain time in order to hear about and remember all the pastimes that we're reading about in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in Krishna book, in Prabhupada's pastimes here. And that this will keep us fixed up for another entire year. Because, of course, everyone is busy with their service. We can't afford. Actually, we have to stagger devotees coming. We can't have all the pujaris coming to the Vrindavan at one time. So they have to arrange amongst themselves who will come at this time. And the same thing with the other devotees who are doing book distribution or Harinam or in the kitchen. Everyone should get a chance to go, and that the temple management has to use their organizational skills in order to accomplish that. But everyone should come. And in this way, we perpetuate what Prabhupada has given us. This is not an ordinary situation. From here, from all these temples, the devotees are going out and liberating the conditioned souls. And it's only possible by this strong association, by seeing how nicely the temples are doing, by meeting up and agreeing with our God brothers and God sisters, by tushanti cha, ramanti cha, by sharing our Sankirtan experiences, our Mahaharinam experiences. All these things are very enlivening. Who can imagine? You hear about such, it can only happen. You don't hear about these things in other movements. Devotees who are doing book distribution, and someone comes up and they're looking for a specific book, like we read the pastime the other day about the Braja Hari who used to be here in Vrindavan. He was doing Sankirtan, and as was happening, the Sankirtan vans would go overnight to park, usually in a Walmart, because they don't mind if you park there. And in the middle of the night, all of a sudden, there were all these lights shining on the Sankirtan van. And they heard every police car has a sound system, and they heard, "Everyone come out of the van now with your hands up." So the devotees are completely bewildered. What's going on? They're just, after 10, 12 hours of Sankirtan, just trying to get a few hours of sleep. So they stumbled out of the van in their gumshas and just blinded by the lights. And the police are just looking at them. And then one person who apparently was in charge says, "Oh, it's okay. It's okay, I know these people." And Brother is saying, "We don't know who this person is." And that person said, he came up to me and says, "I'm sorry we stopped you, but there was a break-in not far from here, and a van that matched this description was involved, and it was the robbery of a gun store. So that's why they came very heavily, a whole squad of people, and all of them had their guns drawn when the devotees came out of the van. So they didn't know what to expect. And then the person in charge said, what did he say? He said, "Hare Krishna." There's a cop in the middle of nowhere in a Walmart parking lot. He said, "Hare Krishna." He said, "You guys fed me when I was in the University of Florida." Because that's where we have food distribution since 1972. He says, "I know." He said, "These guys are good guys." He said, "Everybody come up." And then they all came up, put their guns away. He said, "Everybody should take a book." So they sold 30 Bhagavad Gitas. You see, So this is how Krishna arranges things. This doesn't happen in other societies. Prasadam distribution is a secret weapon. So when we hear these stories, we recognize how Krishna is there in the Sankirtan Yajna. And every devotee who does Sankirtan recognizes this. He knows. I'm not doing this. I'm simply trying to serve, and Krishna is sending people, depending on my situation. And why do we practice this Trinadapi Srinechana Tarapi Srishna? Because how else can I be eligible to be a vaya medium? I have no qualification. All right, how many times have we gone on Sankirtan, out there the whole day and nothing? Thinking, oh, I'm useless. Whole case of Bhagavad Gita's, because on Henry Street they used to drop us off in the middle of nowhere, Woodbridge, New Jersey. Middle of nowhere. But there was a mall, I think it was the only mall that existed in that time and place. And we'd stand at the street light and we'd try to pass out incense and Bhagavad Gita's. And if we were lucky, we would sell something. And we really didn't have much choice. The van didn't come back till 5 o'clock. So you're out there by yourself. And so at a certain point, I wasn't doing very well. I just sat down and I thought, okay, let me read, the Back to Godhead magazine and get some nectar. And then as I was about to sit down, this lady pushing a shopping cart from across the other side of the parking lot is heading directly towards me, and there's nothing around me. There's no cars parked. There's nothing. I'm thinking, maybe she needs directions. I can't help her. I mean, what do you... She comes over and says, are you a Hare Krishna? Because, we're not dressed. We're dressed in our Sankirtan clothes, which weren't very nice in those days, by the way. We would get them out of something called the merge, which was just a collection of clothes that other people had donated. Anyway, she says, I'm looking for a book. And she said, it's pink. And I thought, must be the Nectar Devotion. I said, but how does this housewife in New Jersey know about the Nectar Devotion? So I took out my copy of the Nectar Devotion. I said, do you mean this book? She says, yes. That's the book. She says, my husband took my book. I've been looking to get it. So you can just imagine, who was this housewife reading the Nectar of Devotion? Not the Bhagavad Gita, not, Ishopanishad, the Nectar of Devotion. So she was so happy. So she pushed a bill in my hand, and I just put it in my pocket. We don't look at it. I said, okay, at least that's one sale for the day. I can somehow or other. We went back in the evening to count up. And I took this bill out of my pocket, and it was a $100 bill. So this is just how Krishna, not because of us, but because somehow or other Krishna wanted that devotee, that person, to get a nectar devotion. So there's many such Sankirtan stories, and each one builds so that your faith becomes crystallized and firm, so that you can do anything for Krishna. The more you do for Krishna, the more Krishna allows you to do. Seemingly impossible things. The 1976 Rath Yatra. Basically, there was 3 months to prepare for this Rath Yatra. 3 months to build 2 huge, enormous carts, to get all the permits, to get the city of New York to allow us to pull these carts down Fifth Avenue. And Toshan Krishna sort of cheated them. Sort of like that story in the Mahabharata about Ashvatthama, the elephant is dead. Everybody knows that story? In order to create grief and distress in the Dronacharya. So Yudhishthira didn't want to tell that lie. Right? And actually, after he told that lie, what happened? The wheels of his chariot touched the ground. Before that, they had never touched the ground. So he whispered that lie. Ashvatthama, the elephant is Ashvatthama. the elephant, is dead. I like that. So when we went to the permit office to get the permit, and they asked, well, what are your floats? Because they call these, you have a parade down Fifth Avenue, you have floats. They pull big balloons or they put some carts. So Toshan Krishna said, we have 3 hand-pulled carts. 3 hand-pulled carts. So what were the New York authorities thinking? How big can a hand-pulled cart be? Right? How big? A few people pulling a cart, a bunch of Hare Krishnas pulling a hand-pulled cart. And when we pushed these carts up to the start, because we came from the construction site, up 57th Street, up to 59th Street, Grand Army Plaza, and these carts appeared in the scene, the police were like, they were dumbstruck. They didn't know what to do. And when we pushed them up, the canopies were down. And then when we pushed the canopies up, and they saw how big they were, they said, how is this possible? We said they go up and down, because we have to cross underneath the wires going across Fifth Avenue. So that the fact that they were built in 3 months was in itself a miracle. Where to gather all the parts. And those stories, unfortunately, we can tell in this setting, but they couldn't be written down for many reasons. But you know, a lot of those construction supplies were gifted by various construction sites all over New York City. Everyone understand what it means by gifted? Okay. Okay. At night, we will go out to the various construction sites and get the material to build the Rath Yatra carts. Because such timber was not available on the open market. These are big 12 by 12 beams, and they're 16, 20 feet long. And Jayananda and these great devotees from San Francisco, Jambavan, and take the flatbed truck out at night and go all around the city collecting ingredients for the Rath Yatra cart. There's various sublime pastimes that, you know, only certain devotees could do. Jayananda was one of them. Nobody should try to imitate Jayananda. He was a very special devotee, and Prabhupada acknowledged that. His love for Prabhupada was so... if you were in his presence, you could feel it. You could actually feel it. So much... One time, so when Prabhupada was about to arrive, devotees were pretty clueless back in the day. Nobody had credit cards. Now everybody has credit cards, right? I don't think there's any devotee that doesn't have a credit card. Even our sannyasis, our guru. Back then, nobody had a credit card. Can you imagine how simple we were? So they went to go rent a limousine for Prabhupada. Prabhupada liked Lincoln. And they got to the place, and they had $2,000 cash. They thought, that should be enough, right? They get to the counter, and they go through the reservation process, and the guy says, okay, where's your credit card? I said, we don't have a credit card. We can give you a cash deposit. He said, how are you going to give me a cash deposit? This is a $40,000 car. I said, what do you want to give? He said, we have $2,000. He said, sent them away. This is the night before Prabhupada is arriving. So everybody's going, what are we going to do? The temple had a few beat-up cars. We used to get our cars, anutama. We used to call car anutama. We used to go to the auctions and buy cars for Sankirtan, mostly old police cars, which was very useful because they looked like police cars, but they were unmarked. So they had... So we weren't going to pick up Prabhupada in one of these cars. So I said, you know, my father has a brand new car. I said, I can borrow it. They said, okay, at least let's try. If we have that, if we get something else. So I went out. I didn't really, you know, in those days we didn't associate with our family very much. My father had already actually met Prabhupada at that time. I met him again after that, but... So I went, myself and another devotee, Hemanga, we jumped on the train, went out to my house, and got down, knocked on the door, and I said, Dad, I want to borrow the car to pick up Prabhupada at the airport. Right? Usually you want to borrow the car to take your date out to a prom or someplace like that. And he said, okay, but I have to have it back by tomorrow night. by 10 o'clock. He said, yeah, no problem. So we took I lived on a quiet street. Myself and Hemanga, we got the hose, we cleaned the car inside and outside, made sure it was properly cleaned for Prabhupada. And then we drove it back to the temple, parked the car, put the keys, parked in, we had a garage, put the keys in my pocket, went upstairs. I was probably upstairs for an hour or two, and Jayananda comes upstairs. And I'm elated, I'm thinking, I'm driving Prabhupada tomorrow. This is great. Jayananda comes and he says, Hansarupa, you have to let me drive Prabhupada. And we were quite close. We'd worked together for so many months by that time. I said, Jayananda, how could you ask me that? I said, you want to drive? I want to drive. He said, no. I said, Prabhu, I have to drive. And Jayananda had such a humble demeanor. He was a very towering figure, 6'4", 6'5". And I'm sitting down, and he's standing up over me like this. He said, I have to drive. I said, okay, Jayananda. So he gave me another set of keys. Here, you can drive the other devotees, which was okay. You know what to do. So they used my father's car. They drove Prabhupada. So the family was blessed. Prabhupada asked, what kind of car is this? And Hari said, this is an LTD. It was a Ford LTD. It's a big car, a new car. So, but this is the purity of a devotee, is that he could do anything, Jayananda, literally, just by his purity. So we should all try to strive for that level of purity. No complications, no ego in between us and our service. No one thinking that, yes, if I do this, I'm going to get some accolades. People are going to say, oh, you did this, you did it. No. We should never be thinking like that. Yes, we do our service, whatever it is, and we take pride in doing the service, not in how others are going to recognize that service. Right? They say very commonly, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing right. Everyone's parents have said that to them at some point or another. If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And so all these things are like that. Oh, by the way, so I was driving, I forget whose car it was. Might have been just Yudhumna Maharaj's brother or father. And I drove Pradyumna and small boy Aniruddha and Mataji. And we had a very nice, because being with Pradyumna is like being with Prabhupada. All he talks about is Prabhupada. So many stories, what they did, where they're coming from, how everything was. So just so much more nectar than I would have gotten just by driving, because I wasn't going to be participating in any conversation. So this is so there's so many nice things. If you think you're giving up something, and you have the right mood and the right mentality, Krishna gives you something better. He gives you something to compensate. Don't think that you're a loser by doing something, by taking the humble position. No, this is Krishna's. He's testing you. That can you do this? Can you put yourself behind? What? We don't have to be the front. So this is not just our challenge, it's everyone's challenge. That purity is the force. How else can things go on? Everything may be there. You can have warehouses full of books, but they will simply collect dust if there's nobody pure enough to distribute them, nobody humble enough to distribute them. All right? So everything has to be there. And utility. This temple is famous. Prabhupada gave such a heavy lecture after coming back a year after the temple was opened. And he looked around and all he saw was neglect. All he saw was neglect. And he gave the devotees such a heavy class. He's saying, you're thinking the spiritual master is giving you a burden. And he said, you're thinking this foolish spiritual master is giving us a burden. Because he said the deities were getting day-old flowers. He said, how would you feel if I gave to you day-old flowers? And he described their mentality. He said, whatever money we get, at least let us eat. Can imagine hearing Prabhupada from the Vyasa telling the boys, they're thinking they're working hard, no doubt. Very austere. Anyone who's lived in Vrindavan back in those days knows how austere it was. But Prabhupada he would not give them an inch. He said everything broken, dirty. He said the whole mission will be spoiled. He said, what did he say? The mood is lost. The mood is lost. No bhava. The mood is lost. So, we can never be neglectful. We have to see that wherever we are, it's not that I'm in a temple, it's not my temple. I don't have to be concerned if something is wrong, if something is dirty. How much does it cost to take and pick it up? When we saw that Srila Prabhupada would walk over and shut the tap on the side of the building when the water is dripping. He is our example. He is our preeminent example. One who teaches by example. So this is who we have to live up to this, to the extent possible, not by imitation, but by following. And so he told us to read Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, Samam Bonam. Whether we understand the subtleties, spiritual, and the nuances, he said read it. Because this is his order. And within his order, all success is guaranteed. That's all. All success is guaranteed in the order. The spiritual master says, go here, open a temple. Without a doubt, if you go there, the temple will be opened. So if one is thinking that Prabhupada is in my heart, let me do something, and he feels that there's something I can do, yes, by all means, go and open a temple. Go and open a preaching center on behalf of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Don't just make this a hotel for eating and sleeping, all the temples. Prabhupada was very careful, and he said that in Mayapur, all the GBCs, they should take care that their temples do not become places simply for eating and sleeping. Otherwise, the whole mission is lost. Whole mission is lost. So we have a great responsibility. And we should try to help everyone to achieve that level of success that they can function independently on behalf of the spiritual master and Krishna. Not they're fully dependent all the time, like small child running along the side of the parents. No. At a certain point, he has to take responsibility. What is that? Our famous, dear Godbrother Vaisheshika, our family business. This is our family business. To distribute books, to make sure that the temples are fortresses, to protect those devotees who are going out and distributing Harinam, prasadam distribution, book distribution. So that, as so-called managers, that is our duty, to just keep these places. Prabhupada said, if you cannot expand, at least maintain. So this is, Prabhupada could understand. Now, there will be difficulties, many difficulties. It is not easy. But we have to try at all costs. And that is the key. And Prabhupada even used that term, at all costs. He would say, by crook or by hook, instead of by hook or by crook. By crook or by hook. He gave the example of Sanatana Goswami giving the bribe to the jailkeeper. He said he knew this is wrong. He said, but he needed to go to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So therefore, Prabhupada said, by crook or by hook. He got out of that situation. But we're not Sanatana Goswami, so we have to be very careful in our ethical application of our duties. We have many of our senior members who work very hard at the upper levels to implement ethics, standards, and compliance so that things will go on smoothly and that no one else will be unnecessarily bothered. Water. Any water? Thoda yutām hai. And Prabhupada, in that lecture, when Prabhupada was speaking, he used this term, galagraha. Everyone knows that term, galagraha? Galagraha. Galagraha means this can be two things, a pain in the neck or something that you need to spit out, cough up. He said, you're thinking that the spiritual master is giving you this galagraha, headache, something not nice. So we should never feel inconvenienced. And if we're feeling inconvenienced, then we need to re-examine our approach to our service. You know, I mean, I can have transcendental anxiety, there's no doubt. Every temple manager has transcendental anxiety, how to get everything done. Simultaneously, how to pay the bills, how to make sure everything goes smoothly. Yes, that's transcendental. That's the headache of the spiritual master that we're taking voluntarily. So that Prabhupada could, at that time, concentrate on translation and publication. So now it is the same in that respect. Thank you. That there are so many things going on, we shouldn't try to be a disturbance to our gurus, our GBC men, or zonal supervisors. They're there to make sure that things are okay. If they can come and give everybody a clean bill of health, say, oh, what a wonderful temple, everything is running so smoothly, then you know you're doing your service. Phalam parichiyate. You judge a thing by the results, not by reports. Anybody could write a nice report and submit it, and glowing report. Everything is so nice, everything is so nice. But it may not be the fact. Therefore, the GBCs have to go to the various centers and see for themselves whether things are going on correctly. Like that. So that is a great service, very important service. And we should try as much as possible to help these senior men in their endeavors so that everything continues to run very nicely. Does everyone agree? Everything should run very nicely? Right? Everyone will go home to their home temples, leave Panchagoda alone. Because now he has a bigger headache with all the devotees coming. We have a similar headache in New York for Rath Yatra. Last year, 25,000 people came to Rath Yatra. The biggest Rath Yatra in the Western world, not in Asia, but in the Western world, 25,000 people. That's how many plates of prasadam were served. That's how packed Fifth Avenue was. They used to try to restrict, when we first in 76, we went down Fifth Avenue, it was a big Rath Yatra, because everybody wanted to come, Prabhupada was there. It was packed, the whole avenue from side to side, east and west, all the way down was devotees. But then after some years, apparently the attendance shrunk. And so then the police saw that, so they only gave one lane of Fifth Avenue. And cars were passing down at the same time as the Rath Yatra. We said, what is this? So when we opened up, we invited everyone, said everyone has to come. And again, we took the whole Fifth Avenue. The police were saying, we don't usually do this. He said, but you have so many people, we're going to give you the whole Fifth Avenue. I said, yes, Jai Prabhupada. This is the way it's supposed to be. And so since that time, last 2 years, whole Fifth Avenue packed from down the entire route. And then Washington Square Park, of course, is packed. So everyone is cordially invited. It is certainly something to experience. It takes a lot of preparation, just like every other festival does. And everyone's welcome to participate. It's a wonderful opportunity to serve Lord Jagannath, Radha Govinda. Prabhupada installed these deities personally. Radha Kṛṣṇa, the first installed Radha Kṛṣṇa deities in America, at 2nd Avenue. So very special. Everyone gets a chance. We're looking forward to all your association. Any questions, comments?
Are you providing visas?
Providing?
Visa.
We give invitation letters. Everyone can get a tourist visa, B1, B2, no problem. Feel free to come. And?
I have a quick question.
Yes, Guru.
So with faith, you work your way up, bhava and prema, and there's a certain point where you're not so concerned about rules and regulations and this whole sadhana bhakti idea. So when do we actually come to that point where we just give up the daily routines?
And besides Jayananda, I don't know anybody else. We had Jayananda was always testing the limits. We had this flatbed truck. We dressed up and festooned with nice things, and we would drive around the city, have a nice band sitting on the top of the truck, and this way we would move around like this, stop, distribute prasadam. But at night, the festival truck became the Rath Yatra paraphernalia acquiring truck. So, and nobody, everybody's dressed up like workers. They have these things called bib overalls. You look like a farmer. You look like a construction worker. So one night after coming back, Jayananda said, "We need the truck in the morning." I said, "In the morning? Usually these things we don't do in the morning." He said, no, we have to go. I saw a place. So I drove through the tunnel, Holland Tunnel, from our temple on Henry Street. We used to keep the truck. We had a place called, where the ISKCON Press, Tiffany Place. First, the ISKCON Press, when it moved from Boston, came to that section. And so I got the truck, I met Jayananda. He said, "Just go through the tunnel." I drove through the tunnel. I came out on the other side, he said, "There's that open space." He says, "Pull over in that open space." I said, "Okay." There's nothing there. Literally, it's an open space. But it's not, you have to have the eyes to see, and I didn't have the eyes to see. Basically, there were all warehouses on one side, going towards the Manhattan. And trains would come, and they would uncouple their boxcars and push them up to the loading side of the warehouses. And so this whole square block was nothing but railroad tracks crisscrossing. And before I got the truck, he said, "Make sure that you load a couple of implements." And it's called a demolition bar, or pinch bar. It's a big 6-foot-long, heavy thing which is used for lifting, pushing. So we had a couple of these huge metal crowbars. And he said, "Start to loosen up those rails." And I said, "Whoa." I said, "Jayananda, what are we doing here?" I said, "We're getting axles for Lord Jagannath." And this is broad daylight. There's traffic everywhere. In those days, the toll booths were manned by something like police. And they were taking the money. And so and literally this is broad daylight. So, this looks like a work truck. We look like workers. So I'm loosening up these tracks. He says, "How many? How many are we?" He says, 8 should be enough. I said, 8. So I looked down, and when you're a kid and you live near railroad tracks, you can tell which tracks are used or not, depending on how shiny they are. I said, "These are active tracks, Jayananda." I said, "They're not rusty, they're shiny." He said, "It's okay. It's for Lord Jagannath." So we uncoupled, and you have to pull up the railroad spikes. We loosened them all up, and after loosening them all, he told me, "Back up the truck, drop the tailgate." Truck had a tailgate. Everybody knows what a tailgate is? It's a hydraulic lift on the back of the truck, goes up and down. So I dropped the tailgate and backed it up to the first set of tracks that we loosened. And these are not light things. And Jayananda and I lifted up the edge of the track, 2 tracks, one on each side of the rail. And then I would as I backed up the truck to get to a certain point, then the rails were in the end, we pushed them down onto the flatbed truck. And so in this way we did this and collected 8 pieces of track, huge railroad track. And this is an open truck, there's no covering. He didn't tell me to bring a tarpaulin to throw over it. It was completely open. He said, okay, we're done. And I'm thinking, how are we going to go back to New York? Maybe he knows a different way, because if I go through the tunnel, I have to go through the toll booth operator, who's a cop. And I've got the change, because you could just throw the money into the change thing, even though the cop is there. He said, no. He said, go to the station where the man is. I said, Jayananda, we got this railroad track in the back of the truck. He said, no, it's okay. I drive up to the booth, and I just want to give the guy the money. And Jayananda says, no. He leans over me, and he says, hey, Johnny. Jayananda called everybody Johnny. And people used to call him Johnny Ananda. He said, hey, Johnny. He says, we're working with the church, and we're doing the church's work. Can you let us go through? But the toll was only $2 for a truck in those days. And Jayananda wants the guy to give us free passage. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking, what if they see the... Jayananda was totally unfazed. I'm sweating like anything, and Jayananda was cool as a cucumber. And the guy is looking at Jayananda like he's crazy. What are you asking? You want me to just let you... And he keeps saying, yeah, it's for the church. He says, it's for Jagannath. And then behind us, the cars were lining up and beeping their horns. So everything is held up because Jayananda is trying to get this guy to give us a break on $2. Finally, the guy says like this. And as we drive through, the guy looks at the back of the truck like this. I'm thinking there's going to be a squad of cop cars on the other side of the tunnel.
I was actually looking for a different kind of answer, but...
This is not in Narada Damodar Lila. They thought it was a little too hot to put in there. But we drove through the tunnel. We drove back to the garage on Tiffany Place, the warehouse. And that was it. That's Jayananda's potency. And I have no idea what happened to the trains that came after us. I have no idea. We never heard anything about it. Mother Malati has a question. That answered the question. Jayananda is above rules and regulations.
Thank you for revealing these blissful pastimes on behalf of Lord Jagannath, the liberation of the materials needed to build that car. And it's only reasonable that would happen because in the same way Lord Jagannath also appeared.
Yes. He is why one holiday of an ISKCON saint. Sriman Jayananda Thakur. His... Any other questions? What, we still want to go back to Bhava? Okay. All right. Any other? So many passages. After the next year, I could tell you this, how Jayananda affected people. He was such a sweetheart. Everybody loved Jayananda. We would go, so every year you have to renew your permit for the parade. So I used to go, I went with Jayananda the first time. And next year I went back, Jayananda, he hadn't passed away yet, so maybe it was the year after, or maybe it was that year. And the lady asked, where's Johnny Ananda? A year later, she remembered Jayananda. And just a clerk in the municipal building in downtown Manhattan. She said, where's Johnny Ananda? I told her, I says, he passed away. He had leukemia. And she was so overwhelmed with emotion. I couldn't believe it. how she was so just having met this person. Incredible. So he had that impact on people. It was amazing. And such a sweet servant of Prabhupada. Just. Any other questions? Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Radhe Shyam, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki. Maharaj, I felt terrible when I saw you sit up thinking, why is it Maharaj? Do you know that Maharaj is here to give class?
Saturday.
Thank you.
I always remember our trip.
Why did you give to him? You should have given to me.
You'll never forget.
Why would you give to him?
I always give you